Okay, hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Kaveh Mojtabai, publisher and founder of Artscope Magazine. We're here to present Hopscotch, a poetic performance. And we're going to be happy to introduce the artists and performers as well. And with Celeste Snober, Jennifer Okumura, Nancy Agabian, and Marcia Odabashian. We're going to go through and talk about all things hopscotch, have a dialogue with creativity and fun, the intersection of art, poetry, interaction, and playfulness. So we're going to learn a lot about hopscotch. We're going to go through a video, a narrative, a walkthrough of the exhibit, the images of the exhibit, the inspiration, poetry and reading, discussion of the visual artworks, and then we'll reach our panel discussion. So we'll learn about the exhibition, and then we'll have a nice dialogue, and then the audience Q&A. So we have some more hopscotching to come, and I hope you all have a good time and have fun. So we'll get started. I'd like to start with the introductions of Celeste, Nancy, Marsha, and Jennifer. And we'll also give the links to their websites in the chat. Celeste, will you start and take us away about yourself?
Yeah. Thank you, Kaveh, and thank you all for coming to Hopscotch with us. I'm Celeste Nesley Snober, and I'm a poet, dancer, scholar, writer, and I love hopscotching between forms. In fact, I get lots of inspiration from my writing, from dancing and back and forth. And so it's really important for me to cross these boundaries. I'm a prof at Simon Fraser University, and I basically am trying to get through my day these days. I'm really happy that you're all here, and I'm excited to share some of the poetry and the work that has been emerging out of this wonderful collaboration that I've so enjoyed.
Thank you, Celeste. And Nancy?
You're muted, Nancy.
Hi.
Hello.
So I'm Nancy. I'm a writer and a teacher, and I've had past lives as a visual artist, a performance artist. I was even a punk rocker. My two published books, a poetry collection and a memoir, both center around the intersections of Armenian American and queer women's identity. Recently, I moved back to Massachusetts, where I grew up, to care for my parents who have dementia. So I came to this hopscotch project with a lot of childhood memories, a child-parent role reversal, thinking about family history, and I found that hopscotch made me think about life journeys. The journey of hopscotch resonated with me a lot, and I'm grateful for my collaborators who encouraged my sense of play on this adventure.
Thank you, Nancy. And please tell us, Marcia, tell us about yourself for a couple minutes.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, I'm Marcia Nurizian Odabashian. I'm an artist born and raised in the Boston area, and my primary focus is on drawing, painting, collage, and most recently I've been exploring animation. The themes that I use involve human rights, feminism, world history, and especially in relation to my ancestral background, which is Armenian. My current focus, my current work involves staining paper, canvas, compressed cellulose sponge with onion skin dye. I've studied art and art history at the University of Wisconsin, University of New Orleans, Mass College of Art, and received an MFA from the university, from from Tufts and the museum school. I've exhibited in New England quite a bit, New York, California, New Orleans, and in Armenia. In my spare time, I study Armenian history. I take walks, I play with my cat. And in this image, you can see me in my studio in front of a large painting collage on paper called Altamira, and I am playing hopscotch and ready to enjoy the rest of this discussion.
Wonderful. Thanks, Marsha, for letting us know more about yourself and your hopscotch moves. Jen, now Jennifer, to you. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Jean Okumura, and I'm a Hoppa. I grew up in Philly. I'm a Philly girl, and I attended Syracuse and then also got my MFA at BU. Art and also being an artist is kind of therapy to me. It's not just physical, but also psychological and spiritual. And my works always explore relationship with humans, nature, and objects. They're also an objective homage to my Eastern and Western traditions. And it's a reflection of what is beautiful and also misconceived in both cultures. And then I also am so drawn to the city and raw architecture. And I'm always looking at things as three different words, and it's always conflict, balance, and harmony. And I hope that every piece has that form and energy. And I'm always looking for a new noise and passion. And I talk with my hands, so I apologize for that. But that is me.
Well, this is a performance panel, right? So we get to do our movements and live and and interact. So all that's appreciated. We're excited. We have a fantastic, fascinating lineup here. I think we're going to learn the history of hopscotch, what it means, who we are about it, and what we remember to be, the origin of it, and also, where we're going. And I think this dialogue, we'll also learn a lot. So to start, it makes sense to go through the exhibition and to learn about it and see it. If you haven't been able to attend it, we're going to get you through a virtual kind of walkthrough now. Jennifer is going to take us through this video walkthrough, just introduce the concept of it, and then we'll go through some images to be able to walk through it a little bit more with Marsha.
The first thing I was going to show is this is actually an overview of hopscotch. I hope everyone has seen it. You still have a few more days to see it, so definitely get over to Galatea, see it if you can. So No Fear, Floating Dreams with No End in Sight. Hopscotch is an exhibition of paintings, mixed media works, and poetic narratives intertwined. Hopscotch on our culture by mimicking the movements or the sense of passing through geographical areas and fields of endeavors. And we'll take us on a view right now. So hopscotch here, you begin with the artist names. You move on to a figure that's ready to play. You meet Cleopatra on a clear panel. You move over to what inspired hopscotch are these two red paintings. And this is kind of the memory room where we ask people to write a memory of hopscotch. And then from moving onwards, we move on to these 6.5-foot panels of togetherness, the meeting of artwork, the beautiful poetry, and the interaction of the viewer and whoever is there at the gallery. And that we continue to keep moving on. You can see the words. And as we continue to leap and play, we're really building on the fond and real memories that are brought in our own life experiences. And we hope that the audience kind of are influenced by each other, by the works, and allowing surprises layered with meanings of infused with physicality, psychology, entertainment, and challenge. We just passed Nancy's beautiful poem, and we're back to our beautiful, our woman right here that started the show. So that's an overview again.
Thanks for the overview, Jen. And from the overview, you can see as you walk through and bounce through and hop through, Nancy will walk through, Marcia, we're going to have a few of the introductory room and walk through a couple of the different images. And that way Marcia can kind of describe what we're seeing there. And then we'll go into more detail about with the poetry and the visual artwork.
Thank you, Kaveh. This is a view of the gallery from the window up above, outside looking in. And what you can see on the left are the, and down below with the metal polygons are the transparent image of the collaborative piece that we did called Seeing Through the Geometry of Hopscotch, and which you can see on the right side on the clear plastic panel, plexiglass, is a poem by Nancy, and then directly across from it, you can see a poem by Celeste. It's a little bit hard to see it here, but when you're in the gallery, you can see it's the lettering is in white, and as the light hits it, you can see the shadows behind it, and it's really quite lovely. And the main idea of this shot is to symbolize the collaborative effort that we all put into this, and it's meant to be seen as a collaboration, even though there are individual pieces done by each of us individually. This is meant to, because of the transparency and the ability to be able to put letters on top of the paintings and move them around, and obscuring parts of the paintings, and like covering up parts of it, seeing through it, is intended to bring the whole thing together. And then as we move into the next room, was there another slide of it? Okay. And then here's the slide when you first walk into the gallery. You can see a painting on the right, which is called Hopscotch 1994/2021. And that's the original painting that began the whole idea of hopscotch for us. And then we have it juxtaposed next to the large installation piece, and together they emphasize people and in the landscape or going through the landscape. And this is an example of the painting of the poetry covering up part of the painting, and also making a pointing towards the painting, so that it's both. It's like obscuring it, but it's also calling attention to it. And you can see on the lower part, it says home, and closer to us, the audience, it's there's start, which encourages you to go all the way through each of the through the entire installation, linking everything together. And this is our final overview piece. It's a meeting between the artwork and the audience, provokes emotions and experiences. To experience art is to be open to new ways of understanding and allowing the surprises. The interactivity of art and play is the backbone of the hopscotch process of working together and influencing each other.
So we're going to move into the poetry portion of this event. We're going to hopscotch over to poetry now. And I'm going to read the poem Marsha just referenced, Girl Rules Hood. Rub a rock on the driveway to draw a rough line like a magic trick. Who taught me this? Toss the stone as far as you think you can arrive on 1 foot, as far as I can remember. Hop to the square, pick up the rock, turn around and bring it home. Home? While balancing on your sneaker or bare toes? I found myself teetering between groups of girls in my neighborhood, those my age who tormented me because I didn't look like them and thus couldn't be a girl, and those younger whom I imparted my knowledge and kissed in flowery bedrooms. I can't remember who wins, if she arrives first, at which end of the driveway, closest to home or by the street. I don't remember the rules or if crossing the lines even mattered.
I'm going to read Hopscotch in a Star. Go between the lines, over, across, beyond spaces, redefined and transgress what you thought possible. Throw beyond boundaries. How many constellations can be drawn on pavement within your dreams? Draw hopscotch in a star. Count the spaces outside the parameters. Extend the edges of play, a living game of wonder. Improvise the rules. A new path may arrive. Dance towards the infinite.
This is called Mahogany and Oak. Do you live in your childhood bedroom? People ask when I tell them I moved into my parents' home to care for their dementia. Asked with a chuckle, I hear a suggestion that I'm not a real grown-up, even though it's my parents who have traveled back in time, my mother a playful urchin breaking into baby talk, and my father quick to tantrum when he's unable to serve her requests. They sleep in the room next to mine, facing west. The question irks me. I've lived for 30 years in LA and New York, but here's a sign that I haven't come very far. The furniture is heavy, oak and mahogany, too huge to move by myself. I remember holding Mom's hand at the antique store down the street as she selected the dresser, cedar chest, and wardrobe more suitable for the 53-year-old woman I am and not the child I was, eyeing penny candy behind the counter. Her mother was only 47 when she died, and now I have surpassed her, taking her place in the room that loss built, catching the sun in the morning.
Between. We talk of best practices. Have we forgotten how to hop, jump between what we know and don't know? Eat mystery when the plans change.
This poem is a dialogue between me and my mother. Did you play hopscotch? Oh yeah, I used to go to the junior high up the street and draw the map. There was a lot of concrete up there, and I would hop, hop, hop. You went by yourself? I guess there weren't any kids my age in the neighborhood. And how did you learn to play hopscotch? From the kids at school. Don't you remember? Kids pick up things from each other at school. Why not tell me a memory of playing hopscotch at school then? And why would anyone play hopscotch alone? I suppose it might be more fun than an alternative from her secret childhood. Hop, 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 my mother says.
This is called Perspective. It is not a long road from turquoise to ochre, burgundy to sienna, Yerevan to Boston, Tokyo to Vancouver. Traverse between the worlds, where hopscotch is a universal language. One game has so many names in migration. La Marelle in France, Dawn in Cuba, Mamalache in Mexico, Kit Kit in Hindi, Tuteo in Ghana, Campara in Italy. Skip, jump, leap, hop through all the colors. These are the movers' verbs. Feet have an intelligence. Turn perspective, cast the pebble, shoe, rock, or tile to the sky, and it might just land in the beautiful road in front of you.
This one is called Tree Forgiveness. Why do people cut down trees in the suburbs? It kills me. Don't they know the arches and canopies transform the street from scorched earth to home? There's a reason I moved away at the age of 18. The suburbs are silence, a place where the traumatized go to shut up, pluck a trunk from the ground, float it through the sky, and grind it to dust. I returned to be with trees only to see them massacred. I'd forgotten my mother screaming when my father called a team of saws to our lawn, buzzing through her cries. As a child, I never mourned at their stumps, though they covered me as I played hopscotch and skinned my knees. Outside my window, they stood guard, watchful and mute. They scattered light and softened us, absorbing all our drama. Now I want to travel through the veins of their leaves to learn their unnameable knowledge, through their pulp to feel their untamable force, down their roots to forgive all the feelings denied, unexpressed, and hold them in their silence.
Jump into desire. Create the conditions for the wild to grow, spill, leap off the sidewalk of your own becoming. Look what is revealed outside the contours. An ontology of gravity and levity. The body sketches through the air. Cultivate beginnings. Jump into desire. Thank you.
Thank you so much for drawing us into that and into the mystery, of ourselves and our memories, our emotions, our passions, and who we are. And to bring it all together as well, we're going to go through the visual art and we're going to just see how it all, the intersection as we go. So if we look at the, Marcia and Jen are going to now discuss the visual art and their pieces and what hopscotch and the pieces and the structures mean to them. And then we'll tie it all together and go into the discussion.
Okay. Thanks, Kaveh. And that was just amazing, Celeste and Nancy. I'm blown away by it. You see two paintings, obviously. The one on the left is the original hopscotch painting, which you had seen earlier. And the one on the right is another hopscotch painting, which was done at around the same time. And you might ask, well, why in the world did you put in 2 paintings from 1994? And it's a great question. Because originally that's where I came up with the idea when I was a student, MFA student at the museum school. I had begun this series of Hopscotch, and I had been talking to Marie Craig, the director at Fountain Street, about this idea months ago, and she said, "Oh, you have to include the original paintings," and so here they are. And the thing that is probably most obvious to people is the composition has red on both sides of each canvas, and that's to define two different types of space. One is a very shallow space, which is where the red is, and then the center part has a more ethereal, airy, unknown, mysterious kind of space. And you might also ask, well, why red? And so I have something here that I found. These are a pair of rubber boots that I had as a child, as like I don't know how old I was, about 4 years old, maybe. I just randomly found them. And something else, and as you can see, they are red. And then roller skates that I also had from back then. So red has a significant meaning to me, a personal meaning, which to me at that age especially meant running, jumping, splashing in puddles, independence, having fun, play, exploration, and etc. And the main reason I started working on Hopscotch is because I had been a teacher of school-age children, and I was very interested in the idea of empowering girls. And I read quite a bit about it, and was just very interested in girls becoming empowered, developing strength, jumping, building strong bodies, strong minds, just being strong. And so the piece on the right, you can see, has the red on both sides, forms the shape of a leg, and which you can see through into the unknown, the mysterious, etc. The one on the right has the grid, the left rather, has the grid, and the purpose of the grid is, well, obviously the Hopscotch grid. And for me, it was about, especially at that time, I had been thinking a lot about the modernist grid and how, it's male connotations and, owned by male artists. And I thought, well, come on. So I decided, well, Hopscotch is a grid, and I am going to claim Hopscotch as my grid, and the grid for girl culture, the grid for girl empowerment. And then also, let's see, we have the grid, and one of the things that I was very interested in as a child, and even now, is just the sheer visceral aspect of mark making, like on the pavement, and also different ways of drawing the grid. There are millions of ways of drawing the grid. And, you know, besides the usual one that we think of with the 8 squares. It also has, you can see the black circles, yeah, those are the stones. And so the stone itself can be a weapon. It is made from the earth, so it's strong and resilient, and it's something that if you throw it, you know, into the polygons, into the rectangles, it takes skill and chance. And so, you know, this is also about rules and making rules, breaking rules, you know, abiding by rules. And then generally in the other thing is that it's really imbued with lots of hidden meanings, lots of layers of meaning, layers of space, and such as well, there's the metaphor of time and how it takes time to throw your stone, jump through each of these squares, reach home, turn around, jump back, and pick up your stone on the way, and then make it back to start. But there really is no beginning and end, because you keep going through this sequence over and over again. And did I mention that the stone is also a metaphor for the soul? And let's see, I guess we can go on to the next slide. Yeah. Okay, this is a recent painting. This is the most recent painting that I did, and it's called The Velocity of Stone Landing in a Hopscotch Polygon. And here you can see this, the middle section is an onion skin dye stain, and it's a very unique pattern. I've done lots and lots of staining, and I've never gotten this type of a texture before, and I don't know if I ever will again. I hope I do, but I don't know. So it's very unique, and something that just came from the stars somewhere. And you can see that I've made it, the blue lines around it and the red dots up at the top are meant to imply movement, and you can also see that similar type of space as in the two earlier paintings that I showed, where you have the space that goes further and further back, is unknown, is mysterious, and then there's the sky and the ground, the land, the sky, and all the mysteries that go with it. And we can go on.
That is great, Marcia.
Thank you.
The other thing, and so I'm Jennifer Jean Okumura, and the piece that's on the left was actually kind of a last minute piece that was put in the show. The one that we were going to use is actually 48 by 80, but didn't fit the space. But this piece came out of it. Our collaboration is called Throw Beyond Boundaries, and it's an interactive piece. We really wanted the people that were coming in and kind of enjoying this journey with us to leave their mark and their memory. And so we put Post-its, and we had people kind of write their memories, whatever came to mind of play, and really wonderful, wonderful things that brought back of them hopscotching. And the one on the right is actually the girl that kind of greets you in the beginning of the show, next to all the artist names. And it's really the idea of unity, one world. It's the idea of the ever-changing memories and our experience of play. And just like visual artwork and words, they really get inside you. And it's the same thing with here, and that's the reason why she is nude. I don't really think, when you really think of purity and things like that, you don't really think of yourself as being clothed. Plus it's probably fun to play hopscotch nude. And so she kind of greets you while entering the exhibit. And then she also is ready to play. She represents this wonderful idea of that only on stage and when we're playing are we really truly unified. And the one in the middle is from our reception. And I just like it. So it's in there. The next one is the Throw Beyond Boundaries. This is the interactive piece. I want to thank everyone that has seen the show, and anyone that hasn't, please come and write a memory. It's going to be part of the piece. And there's some really wonderful memories that people have written on here. One was, it was always a game that went further, and not who finished, but what the most accurately. And then there was a guy from France that talked about him playing. So it's, it's improvising the rules. It's the idea of being same, but different. It's the same game, but depending on where your geographic location is and how you play it, it's the same, but it's also different. And this is our collaborative piece that Marsha and I, we went back and forth. We had so much fun in doing this piece, seeing through the geometry of hopscotch. And the idea of this piece, it's 8 panels. It's transparent, clear panels. They're 6.5 feet in height, and then they're also 2 feet width. You can see the legs. It's on these little legs. Just a lot of the pieces that are in our show, they're meant to be moved. They're meant to be interacted with. We really wanted to work on a theme that really brought joy during a time that's kind of, has a lot of, has us in like a lot of deep thoughts and things like that. We wanted to really break out of it and really bring our thoughts to the surface of being playful and joyful and making us smile. And with this piece, the one that we showed earlier, it actually begins with the first piece. And so since the beginning, it began from like grayware is where some of the first images of hopscotch, but it also went across and journeyed over to Roman Empire. And so Cleopatra is the first interpretation, the first face that you see that kind of welcomes you. And the idea of all these faces too is that kind of going back to my background, there are gnome faces. They're called skill and talent. They're actually performers that wore masks on stage, and they're really meant to be a very neutral expression. And it really lends to the idea of ever-changing rules and the environment of play. So, Marsha, what would you like to say with these pieces?
I think you said it all. I think the interaction of the viewers being able to walk through the different panels is really significant. And I mean, it's too bad we can't be in the gallery and actually show people walking through it. But the one thing about it is that the piece itself is always changing according to where you're standing. And the panels are easily moved in order to give a different perspective. And I think it's also important that the poetry is written right on some of the panels, and there are fragments of the poetry written on it. And which is kind of how this whole thing is seen, is it's seen as a whole, but it's also seen in fragments. And I can't resist talking about the red stands, which of course remind me of red shoes that were the original hopscotch shoes. And is how hopscotch is intended to be played, with red shoes.
Only red shoes.
Only red shoes. And also Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz had red shoes, ruby red shoes. And what did she say? There's no place like home. So start and home are very significant to this entire installation.
And this piece here actually has home right in the bottom there. So it's throughout the show. This is just a piece that's the creating shots. Anyone that knows Marcia and I, they know that we're short. So working with panels that are 6.5 feet, we actually had them on walls, and we painted it, and we let them dry, because it took a couple days for these to dry on the floor. And the materials we used was chalk marker, acrylics, handmade paper, also vinyl, and so that's actually all the pieces that on these clear panel pieces. So,
and what's also interesting is that if you can go back for a second, Jennifer and I had started off this project knowing that we were both going to be in this tiny space, and this is before Celeste and Nancy came on board. But we were going to be in this tiny space, and we had started sending artwork back and forth, and we would work on it and then send it back to the other person, sort of like the exquisite corpse kind of thing. And so, all was not lost once we came up with the idea of hopscotch, because we actually incorporated some of that work into the artwork, that the paintings that Jennifer did. These portraits are actually Jennifer's, and she's a phenomenal portrait painter. And that's what I want to say.
There's so much that we can see that intersect right now that I'm drawing from hearing the poetry with the memory of childhood, and then the parents' memory, and also the transcendence into reading between the lines into the infinite. And so you're releasing the memory into the infinite, who we are, and then you're seeing the origin story of hopscotch and reclaiming the grid into and the invention of it, being a almost a playful invention. It could be the soul going through a journey, right, through the squares and the grid of space and time, as well with a material object, right, their material bodies. And then you see the who you're playing with the faces that are universal, and they're playing with you, in that universal humanitarian spirit. So you see the intertwining that you drew out to really draw through this child's game, which we as adults can also remember to be playful and fun, and understand what our living is, and breaking through our conditioning and our traditions of when you're reclaiming, Marcia, and when traditions start to turn into you're like saying mailing into the grid and the modernism, and you're reclaiming as a woman. Now you're going back to the creative space of humanity, drawing it all together. And so I'm seeing a lot of that intertwining. I'm seeing the meditative spirit. I'm seeing nice comments about good energy and so forth, and the quality of paintings, and people are seeing who we are, in terms of our childhood playfulness. So and we'd like to get into the Q&A panel discussion, but I think you've answered a lot of the questions and maybe the discussion. And if anyone in the audience would like to write their questions in the chat section, and we can even we'd like to go into those as well as we're talking. So please put your questions in there. as we can absorb what we're going through, what we're seeing and learning and being around in terms of the interaction and the installation. So I'm just wondering, where did your inspiration come from? What, if we start with the questions, and this is the panel, whoever would like to talk, why this theme at this time? Where do you see we are at this time in life? And maybe I can draw a literal description of the transparent panels if you want to say what that might have been in a manufactured sense when you purchased them. I mean, what are we seeing in this time and in the world that we're in right now, mid pandemic, and then how you felt this is the right time to talk about go into hopscotch.
Do you want me to go? Well, we had a lot of discussions about what the transparent panels are called, and when you purchase them, they're called sneeze guards, and we weren't sure how we felt about that. It's kind of disgusting in a way, but these are transparent panels that are used in health clubs to separate one exerciser from the other, so that to protect them from COVID. And so that's how we came up with using sneeze guards at this particular time. It's a metaphor for our times. And I've already talked about my own inspiration for hopscotch originally. And I just thought it would be fun to, this was a new experience for us to be having a collaborative show in this tiny space. And so I wanted to have something that's really fun, that's, not all about what's going on in the world, and something that could take us away from it. But we did find out, as the four of us discussed more and more, that hopscotch isn't just a child's game. It is a child's game, but then it also has many other meanings and many other interpretations, and it actually ended up raising more questions than we were able to solve. And there's so much more research to do, and many places to go with it.
Once we started, talking and collaborating about hopscotch, we saw hopscotch everywhere. I kept seeing it everywhere on concretes and sidewalks, and the metaphors, the layers of metaphors. And I love the physicality of hopscotch, is we actually used to do this, and yet we are on a journey, and we're constantly crossing boundaries of the place in between. And I love how that actually is an incredible container for what we're always doing, and we're always living in this place of this in between, and no place, especially right now. So it just feels like this infinite metaphors, and that we should have a hopscotch revolution. And basically, yes. So I think we've got the hopscotch bug. It really is this connection between, to me, what is physical and what is invisible.
Yep.
Well put. Thanks. We can intertwine between our questions and also the questions from the audience. So I see Dr. Indrani Margolan has raised her hand, and you can.
Thank you. Thank you for such a beautiful sharing of your artwork and creativity. I loved it. I wrote some more comments in the chat, but my question is about your creative process. So it's really clear how you collaboratively work together in the gallery and how it comes together. But as artists, how collaborative were you in the making of your individual artwork? Like, how much were you collaborating to make each of your own pieces?
Well, thank you, Indrani. I'll just hop in quickly that in some ways, I felt as a poet, we didn't so much collaborate together, but we were like four jazz musicians, and we're just like going along, and we're working off from one another. And there's something about, I think the conversations fueled the soil to create, but it wasn't that we were consulting or something all the time about it.
Mhm.
We met several times over Zoom. So the first time Jennifer and Marcia showed us their paintings, and then Celeste and I had deadlines to write poems, and we shared our poems, and then Jennifer and Marcia were creating the paintings and installation as we went along. That's how it coalesced. With Jennifer and Marcia installing the show.
And also, Jennifer and I have been in touch with each other, mostly through phone, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, like every day, a couple of times a day sometimes. We were like, I have another idea, and I have another idea. And as I had said before, we did, like, I would start a painting and I would mail it to Jennifer, and then I'd get one back, or she'd drop it off at my studio, when she was in Boston or something like that. So we did some of that, and we could have done a lot more than what we actually did, but we had COVID around, so we had to be careful. And ideally, we probably would have been in each other's studio.
Because they're so close together at SOA, where I'm over at 450 and Marsha is right at, right off of Warren. So
right.
We definitely have been able, but I think part of it was the pandemic. Part of it was what was going on with our lives. I know that Marsha was very patient with me. I went through surgery, so I was learning how to walk again. So at that time, Marsha sent me these beautiful cards that she handmade, and to keep my spirits high, and to keep in mind that we're doing the show and all this type of thing. So we just had a great time, and just having all four of us together, it was very organic. We kind of came together, it did come together through Zoom, but also in person. And we just see this show kind of expanding and doing more things in person, which we just weren't able to do because of the situation with the pandemic and stuff. So
yeah, and I really want to create a performance in that space. Obviously I can't right now, but hopefully someday.
In the next space.
In the next space.
Celeste, the spontaneity you're describing about interacting, when I was walking through the exhibition and reading the poem about going between the lines, I actually described this to the panel, where I asked about the root term of intelligence, and do you all remember what the root is of intelligence? So the prefix is inter, right, for in between, and legre for lines. And so intelligence is reading between the lines. And then so when Celeste talked about going between the lines and beyond, and then was it Albert Einstein that said intelligence is creativity, having fun? Was that it? So what we're having is
imagination is more important than knowledge.
Yes. Said. Yeah. So here we are, the creativity having fun. This is intelligence, humanity. So we saw seeing these. I think that drew out, I guess, with the back and forth with the poems and the artwork as you went through the process. We have a fun little question here in the chat where it says, "Did you?" Where is it here? Something to the effect that did you ever think about putting the panels on wheels to move around?
That would be a great idea. That may the show is actually moving to the Piano Craft Gallery in November, so maybe on wheels, or it might be on wheels, because we need to do basically from the car. We basically have to transport it over, so we may need wheels.
Put them on Marsha's roller skates.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
And everyone can hopscotch together around the panels too.
Yeah.
we're talking about. Let's see, whoever else has, more questions, please put them in the chat, feel free. We also want to see, we're almost at the hour.
Susan has a question. There's a question I see.
I see. Okay, great. Please, Susan McCaslin, and you're
I'll unmute. Am I unmuted now? Can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yes,
Yeah,
we
I
can
can
hear
hear
you.
you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I kept thinking about the trickster figure in so many mythologies. The trickster dwells in liminal places and makes interconnections and does magic. And the other thing that stood out is the way all of you are very body aware, are linking sky to earth and the cosmos to the earth, and all the bringing about a kind of ecological integration of human and non-human and various worlds. It's like an ecological principle. You've entered this interplay space that I find so fascinating, and how much you actually talked about these things. I think in observing and reading each other's work or looking at each other's work, you all entered that play field, and that really is a beautiful thing. I think that's what we need, a kind of looking at interconnection instead of being in these boxes or grids, hopping. So
Hopping in there. Yeah. Thank you.
I'll mute myself again.
Well, originally we had planned it so that the, I'll call them sneeze guards, even though I'm supposed to call them transparent panels, were supposed to be, we intended them to be able to be moved. And they do move, they're not heavy. It's just that, they can be a little fragile. So, wheels are good, but they are able to be moved fairly easily, even without wheels.
Good. And yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, part of this too, when we were making this, just like when you're writing a poem, when you're creating art, it's very personal. It's kind of like a clear, rare voice that's inside us. But unfortunately, it's like if we don't have a viewer, we don't have someone interacting with it, you don't have that monologue, and it just stays in you as an inner monologue. So that's kind of what when we were thinking about the show, we really wanted to kind of push ourselves, but then also kind of learn and experience. And we wanted the viewer, when they came in, to kind of really be inspired by their own life and by their own experience from hopscotching, and kind of bring their language and their travel experiences and their own written words to the show also. So that's something that we all thought about during our Zoom meetings too, is that, as much as it was a collaboration for us, it really is a collaboration for whoever is experiencing the space and the exhibition.
I want to get to the next question. We have just about 10 more minutes, and see. You've talked about the work and creating your work, so I'd like to see what do you hope people will take away from this show?
I think I may have just said part of it, but I hope that the idea for this for us is we really want it to be an experience of joy, kind of the joys of life, a very optimistic kind of view and outlook. And no matter what is going through and what's happening with us, nothing brings us together more than playing a game. We did a lot of that during COVID. We were playing, whether you're playing card games or different things, it's just nothing brings out the pure joy and brings us back to what is important than being able to perform and play. And so I think that's what we really want people to take out of it, is this idea that, no matter what is going on, you're able to come back to this place that's kind of safe and play and exploring and keep learning. And so.
Yeah, and I think also it's to cultivate play as a way of being, and play is connected to creativity, and play is connected to risk, and play is a portal. So I would say that we need to cultivate play in our daily life. No. And hopscotch is a real memory of that.
Mhm.
When I first saw the exhibition, I just was blown away because I didn't know how all the pieces were going to come together. So there was just this sense of wonder, like a wonderland. And I'd like for people to have that experience, that they can mine their memories, but also I hope there's enough layers. And I think the four of us are the work is quite different and goes in all different directions, and yet it all comes together. And so I just to echo what other folks have said, that people can find themselves within it, whatever their memories or whatever they're dealing with in the present.
So how do you think you were, and I think the audience, can answer as well, along with the panel. How are you influenced by this show? I suppose when it came together, when I was walking through, when we were doing this, this Zoom, the performance. What are you seeing the influences even having on you as we go through this process in and of itself, and what you're seeing, how you're seeing it all come together now? And also then to follow up, I want to know, I'd like to ask, what are the next steps individually and collectively? I know you mentioned that the show is moving to the Piano Craft Gallery, right? At the same time, what are the next steps you might be doing individually and collectively? So first, how you were influenced by this show, and the audience can, please also let us know what your thoughts are.
Well, one of the things that I thought of was that when I look at the transparent pieces, I sometimes see them arranged as a spiral, and it's moving around and it's spinning off. And so I kind of see hopscotch just being spun off into all different directions and just expanding everywhere. And sort of like what Celeste was saying about, we want to start a hopscotch movement. So that's where I want to take it. That's how I was influenced by
it. Can I make an interesting comment here? It says it's interesting to me, Mary Terzian in the comments, to me that the game of hopscotch requires you to stay within the lines, but intelligence, creativity, innovation involves reading between the lines, thinking outside the box. There's an interesting, the origin of outside the box, I was taught, was one thing. Does anyone kind of know where the outside the box came from?
No, but we're sure in boxes a lot these days.
So here's the box. From what I've learned outside the box is there's this ancient game where there's 9 dots that make up a box. And the goal is the question is to draw without lifting your pen off the paper, connect all the dots without transgressing a line that you made in the past or you had written already. And the only way to do so
is to think outside the box.
Is to draw outside the box.
That's really where that term comes from.
Yeah, the only way you would have thought you have to stay within the box, your implication, your assumption. But the line, the only way you can do it is actually you keep having the line go past the dots outside the square or the box, and then you can connect to the last dot.
And here I thought it was another baseball metaphor.
That's when the pitcher is dusting the batter out of the box.
it. That's a diamond.
I wanted to answer the question about how the show influenced and where we see it going, because I feel like the hopscotch lens really helped me with work I was already doing. Like I was already writing autobiographically and writing about my parents' dementia. And so having the lens of hopscotch helped me take it in a different direction. I was really influenced by all my collaborators. And every time we meet, even today, I learn something new every time. It's sort of like these endless layers. And so to echo Marcia, this sort of reverberation or spiral, I would love to see more diverse disciplines come into this. I'd love to see a science fiction interpretation of hopscotch. I'd love a multicultural, all different kinds of experiences with hopscotch, from the city to the country to different racial experiences, different gender experience, the whole thing. I'd love for it to, I'd love to hear more about how like the Post-its that Jennifer showed, those were really exciting to see where people's memories were. So I'd love for it to continue to be a conversation.
Great, thank you. Do we have any other more questions from the audience? Feel free. We have just about a minute remaining. We're at the end.
I have just something to say. I was there at the opening and giving everyone space and observing, in a great mood. I had so much fun, and I was getting ready to leave. Oh, gee, I have to put a Post-it up. What am I going to say? I wrote something random, but I remembered what I wrote, and it wasn't until much later that I had to think. It came out of my sort of subconscious thought, how I tried to jump 2 at a time. So I sort of used hopscotch, which I played a lot, as in another way. I lived on a peninsula, and we always skipped rocks and through rocks, and we crossed a marsh to get to school and get to the park. So when the tides flowed, the marshes would get deep, the creeks would get deep. So I had to practice hopping so that I can get across. And I just thought it was great when it came to the actual game, that I was just going to be the best hopscotcher around. But I actually enjoyed playing alone, because then I could practice my jumping. So that was what I meant on that Post-it. I just thought I got excited about it later when I thought about it.
Yes, thanks for sharing. I think that's a wonderful interaction from a dialogue from everyone here. We've reached our time. If there's anything else anyone would like to say, I'd like to thank the panelists, Nancy Agabian, Marcia Odabashian, Celeste Snober, Jennifer Okumura, and thank you for everyone for joining us in the audience. And
thank you, Kaveh, for moderating for us.
Thank you.
This was great.
Thank you, Kaveh.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kaveh.
My pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Yes.
Thank you, and we hope to see you at the show for the few days and where it's traveling next.
In November.
Yes.
Yeah.
To the gallery, Gallery.
That's right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you.